Everybody, and welcome to All Creatures Animal Hospital puppy class. Today we're going to go kind of back over topic. If you've been following our videos from the beginning, we have talked about crate training and potty training before, but I just kind of wanted to do a refresher and also add this PowerPoint to kind of bring the topic up again, because crate training and potty training is always important, especially at the beginning of having our little puppies with us. So I just want to get this up so that we get this PowerPoint going so we can start going over that. But again, we're going to be going over crate training and potty training, so super important. So I'll be going through some tips and things like that, and kind of like how it should go as far as setting up. Again, my name is Gabby. I have my name down there. I'm one of the veterinary assistants at All Creatures Animal Hospital, and I've been doing these puppy classes for going on like 6 years. I'll be at the practice for 7 years in February. So this is something that I'm really dedicated to, and helping everybody through puppyhood and the challenges that it does come with. So we're first going to talk about a crate, and I tried to get some pictures in here to show. So, first thing is, what kind of crate should I have? It can be confusing. There's so many different crates and things out there, and different options that you could get into. And I love just the regular metal crate. I know it looks cold, but it's really just a safe alternative for these guys to have. It's easy for cleanup when there's accidents. It's got the little plastic flooring at the bottom. So I, definitely recommend, doing the crate. There's different sizes depending on the size of your dog. So this may not be the size if you have a smaller dog. Bigger dog, you may need a bigger crate because you're going to want something that they can grow into as well. So you're not having to get a crate for one stage and then, your puppy outgrows it and then having to get another one. So super important, make sure you have the crate, use it to your advantage. A lot of people have mixed feelings when it comes to crates, and I totally understand, just from being a human being and, not, spoiling my animals. I spoil my cats, my dogs, they sleep in the bed with me. So it hurts, when you're going through this phase and having to put them in the crate, but you have to use it to your advantage and to give them structure. And I equate it to, babies going through their stages of, obviously being a baby to a toddler. You have to give them structure. They're blocked from going up the stairs. They can't gain access to, the cabinets. You're baby proofing your home. It's the same kind of concept for your puppy. There's structures for them. Babies sleep in cribs or bassinets. Your baby has the crate to sleep in. So it's the same equivalent. They have to learn to be in a safe, structured area where they can't just roam free and get into things that can potentially harm them or that they can destroy, things that get them into trouble. As well as the crate also works as almost like a pull-up diaper, and we'll talk more about that, but I love kind of equating it to that because it teaches them how to hold their bladder, being able to hold it for periods of time, and kind of learning where it's appropriate to go to the bathroom and where it's not. So like I said, we'll talk more about that, but just to kind of give you a reference and for people to, I feel like it's easier to understand when you have something to compare it to. So, just kind of think of it as their crib, and eventually you can make it more cozy, comfy. We'll talk about, the different things that we can add in the future, but it's going to be a little strict at the beginning. So again, you want to make sure you have your crate. And another important thing is making sure you have a divider. So you can see this divider here. It has these little hooks that allow it to go into the crate to hook onto the bars there so it can stay in a position where it's not going to fall. But the most important thing is you're going to measure how much space you're going to give for your puppy. So the only space you need is enough space for them to lay down, turn around, and sleep. That is it. You're not going to give them this whole crate. You're going to have this divider in there, and you're going to want to measure from the tip of your dog's nose to the base of their tail. as far as how much, room you should be giving them. So depending on your dog, it may be, if you have a tiny Chihuahua or a Pomeranian, it may only be 4 or 5 bars back, and you're going to have a lot of space back there. If you have a bigger dog, like a puppy German Shepherd, that, is going to be probably like 10 or 12 bars back, and you're going to have a little more space for them. But you want to limit that amount of space. So you don't want to give them this whole crate, because what they're going to do is they're going to go to the back, they're going to use the bathroom, and then they're going to come and sit up here where there is no accident and sleep, and it's not going to teach them of being able to hold it. It just shows that, okay, well, yeah, I can pee in my crate or poop in my crate and then go lay over here and not have to deal with my accident. We have to have them learn to deal with it, and that can be challenging, especially if you have furry puppies that are going to require some bathing and cleanup. So that may come along with the territory. But, if you're strict, and, we'll talk about just kind of different routines and stuff to get into, you can get them potty trained fairly quickly, and they'll start catching on fairly quickly if you're just consistent with your strategy. So we'll talk about some stuff that can help you stay on a consistent pattern to help get you through this potty training and crate training as fast as possible. So, like I said, we're going to start with our metal crate. We're going to have it set up. We're going to have the divider in there, which measures from the base or the tip of your puppy's nose to the base of their tail. Obviously, depending on your breed too, you're going to have to change this and move this divider as far as, as your puppy's growing. So if you have a larger breed dog that's going to grow a lot faster, you're going to have to adjust this, maybe every couple of weeks, maybe once a month, until you're past that phase where you can eventually take that divider out. But for your smaller puppies, you're probably going to have one spot, and that's going to be about as far as you go. So I do have a little list down here, things that shouldn't be in your crate. So no pillows or blankets. I know that's really hard, because I am one for having like 6,000 different beds and blankets and areas for my babies to lay on in my home. But the reason you don't want those blankets or pillows in there is because it's another advantage for them to use those to cover up accidents. So it's going to, teach them that it's okay to go because they have a pillow or a blanket. If you've not noticed already, if you did have a pillow or a blanket in there and your puppy has had all this space, or even the divider's up but you still have a pillow in there, they'll have an accident in one corner, use the pillow or blanket, push it over the accident to kind of cover it up, and then either lay on top of the blanket where the accident is underneath, or lay on the opposite side, still on the cold plastic, and not even acknowledging their blanket or pillow because it's hiding their accident. So we're going to avoid pillows and blankets right now through this phase. Again, like I said, eventually you can go back to having a ton of pillows, blankets, have a special bed in there. You can have all that stuff that you can add to the crate once we're done with the potty training, and everything is where it should be. But for during this phase, no pillows or blankets. Same with potty pads. I highly do not recommend having a paper potty pad in there. It just does not help the potty training process with teaching them where to go. So it's the same thing as the pillow or blanket. They're going to use it to hide their accident. They're not going to learn that it's not appropriate to go in their crate. And if you allow them to do these things now, it's going to be a lot harder in the future to untrain them from these things too. No water bottle or water bowl in the cage. So, if you've gotten a water bottle that you've attached to your crate, I do not recommend having the water bottle or a water bowl in there, especially at night, because all they're going to do is they're going to drink on that water bottle because they're bored, because they happen to wake up because they heard a noise or whatnot, and it's going to create them to have to urinate more and use the bathroom more. So water, will obviously be available when they eat, when they're playing outside. But as far as in the crate, do not recommend the water bottle or bowl. I do get some questions like, right now we're in an odd time where a lot of us are working from home, but if you are still working, you're working long 10-hour days, I do suggest that you could do a water bottle in there, which just avoids accidents, because a bowl they can step in or tip over if they're irritated that they're in the crate, or thinking they can get your attention. But I would just fill the water bottle to maybe a quarter of the way, so they don't have a full water bottle to sip on all day because they're bored. So you can do that like a quarter of the way if you want, while your puppy is home if you're at work. But for small amounts of time, and definitely overnight, I do not recommend having that water bottle or a water bowl in the cage. Same as food. I do not recommend feeding in the crate. I do not recommend leaving snacks. Again, there are things that you're going to have to adjust and kind of work with depending on your work schedule or when you go back to work. For our little babies, we do worry about hypoglycemia, so we do want some kind of snacks available, especially if it's going to be several hours in between, not just an hour or two. So if you do have to put a little bowl of food in there for a snack, that's fine, but there is a bigger chance of accidents happening because what goes in there in the baby comes out just as fast like a child. As far as going to the bathroom, so that is going to create accidents. So if you do have a friend that can come over to feed your dog, at lunchtime, take them out to go to the bathroom, that would be favorable, to just kind of avoid any of that. But we'll kind of go into more details, but just things right off the bat that shouldn't be in the crate: pillows or blankets, potty pads, water, water bottle or bowl, food, even big stuffed animals. I know some people have gotten like the heartbeat pillows. I don't recommend having those in there. I know it's supposed to comfort them, but again, it's another thing that they can use like a pillow or a blanket to avoid their accidents. So, where should the crate go? I do recommend not having the crate next to your bed. We're just going to jump down to number 4 here. Not next to your bed. You do not want it close to you. They need to have that independence. With dogs having separation anxiety, it is 100% caused by humans, whether you intentionally do it or not. So getting these guys used to being in their own room, in their own space, and not next to you 24/7 is super important. So the crate should not go next to your bed. You can set up the crate in a spare room, in the living room, in a laundry room, just somewhere that is not right next to you is super important. So now that we have the crate kind of situation set up, we're going to talk about training their bladder and learning what a full bladder is. So over here I have, we have to teach them what a full bladder is. So right now, their bladder is learning what a full bladder is exactly what it says. So just having the littlest bit of urine in there, even if it's not full, to them they feel like it's full, and then they just go, and that causes a lot of little accidents around the house, which I know can be frustrating. So we have to teach them to hold it and what it means to have a full bladder and when it's really an appropriate time to go to the bathroom. So back over here, roughly, puppies can go in between potty breaks. About how old they are in months equates to how many hours. So I have an example here. If they're about 2 months in age, they can go about 2 hours in between potty breaks. Now, that might not be true for every puppy. Some puppies can go longer. Some puppies may only make it an hour. But if that's the case, we're going to work up to that time frame. So that just kind of gives you an idea of where they should be at and kind of where you have to work to. They don't need to go every 15 minutes because that's not going to help you at all when it comes to potty training. Definitely take them outside to go to the bathroom. I do have, clients ask, is it okay to bring them outside? Is it too soon? They haven't had all their shots. Taking them outside is super important. There are things that they can get as far as, little parasites that are in the grass, things like that. But they need to learn to go outside to the bathroom. So if you're in a house, practice out in your yard, making sure you're taking them out there. If you're in an apartment building, make sure you find an area of grass that they can go and use the bathroom. We'll talk about some other alternatives, especially if you're in a high-rise apartment. But for the most part, they should be getting exposed to the outside, going to the bathroom, going on a leash. So I put down here, get your puppy used to the leash. Even if they're tiny and they stay right by you every minute of the day, and even when you're outside and they don't wander far, get them used to the leash. There's no difference as far as using a collar or a harness. It doesn't hurt them or affect any kind of growing or anything related to their throat to have a collar on. When you're fitting collars, you should have about be able to fit 2 fingers underneath the collar, so it's not too loose, but obviously not too tight. We don't want them slipping out of it. And as far as, harnesses, same concept, make sure they're tight, but you can do harness or collar. It's really up to you. Harnesses, the only time I really don't like the harness or would recommend just kind of being mindful is if you have a longer haired dog, whether it be like a golden doodle or I'm getting lost on my breeds, a Cocker Spaniel or anything like that. Just be mindful with the harnesses because, it can cause matting where it's being kind of worn. So just make sure you're brushing frequently when the harness comes off to avoid that. Because if they get matted too severely, it's going to cause the pup to have to be shaved down. So other than that, I have no problems, but practice. It could be one little noise that may spook them and they could dart off from you, especially our little guys. I know it's like scary or may not have been something you ever thought of, but hawks, eagles, things like that are in the sky that can pick up these little guys easily. So having them on a leash and just keeping them close and having that structure keeps them safe, as well as just keeps them focused on the task at hand because, they're new. These are all things like we talked about in our previous socialization video. They have not been exposed to a lot of these things, so the wind blowing, the tree moving, a branch falling down, a car roaring by, those are all new to them. So we have to kind of teach them while they have ADD of focusing on 100 different things going on. That is not odd to us because we're used to it. We have to keep them focused so that they understand the purpose of them being out there, especially for the pottying, and then eventually, it can be obviously a playing and potty situation, but during this time it's, strictly for the going to the bathroom. The other thing is to getting used to the habit that you do not need to get up in the middle of the night to take your puppy out to go to the bathroom. They can sleep through the night. They go through the same REM cycle as we do. So if they wake up in the middle of the night crying, I know it's hard, it's fine to go and check on them once things have quieted down and they're not reacting, but really do not take them out to go to the bathroom because if you teach them now that you're going to take them out, that's going to be a lifetime thing. Now, if you're fine with getting up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning every night to take them out to the bathroom, go ahead, be my guest. You can definitely get them used to that. But if you like to sleep through the night like I do, you need to learn, or they need to learn to sleep through the night just like you do. And that will go into our routine and setting a schedule, which we'll talk about next. But just getting them used to sleeping through the night. And you may wake up to accidents. I'm not going to lie to you and say, oh, they'll never have an accident. But they have to get used to the fact that, there is a time that you go to the bathroom and a time that they sleep, and they just have to get adjusted, especially depending on where you got them from in certain situations, whether it's been from a breeder or a store or even an adoption facility. They had the opportunity to just go when they wanted to, and then somebody would come behind them and clean them up. So, you have to kind of break them out of that pattern that it's not acceptable to pee and poop where you sleep. So the biggest thing I'm going to talk about too is routine. So getting them used to a routine. Get a schedule written out for your normal day, and not, I would highly recommend, I don't know when things are really going to go back to normal, but try to get them used to what a normal day, outside of COVID would be like. So if you're working from home now, but when things calm down, you usually go to work from, 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, get a schedule and kind of get that schedule based around that, because eventually when you're not home and they're used to you being home all the time, we want to avoid them having that separation anxiety like we talked about before with not placing the crate next to the bed. So get a schedule written out for the day and have the whole family involved. Of course, if it's just you at home, sit down, plan out your day from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. But if there's kids involved, your husband, whichever, wife, anybody that's in the household that's going to be involved in this puppy's life, sit down together and write a schedule of what your typical day is like, and use that to go by, as far as getting your puppy adjust to your schedule and you not having to adjust to them. So if you wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, typically, and you're going to wake up, you're going to, take them outside to go to the bathroom, you're going to bring them back in, have breakfast, and then you're going to have to use your crate and put them in the crate, because we'll talk about later when eyes are not on your baby, they need to be somewhere structured and safe, and that's a crate. And then, after they eat, you're going to have to take them back out again, because once they get food, they're going to have to go to the bathroom. And then you're going to put them in their crate or a little playpen or something where they're confined in a small space. And then get ready for your day. Get everybody ready in the house, whoever needs to get ready. And then treat, even if you're working at home, treat it as if you're not at home and put them in the crate for some time during the day. So, like I said here, use the crate to your advantage. When eyes are not on your puppy, they should be in the crate. Give them an hour to 2 hours a day in the crate when you're home. So, if you're working from home, act like you're going to work and put your pup in their crate. Have them hang out in there for a little bit. You can do some toys in there, like Kong toys, filled with some treats in it. Little, toys that are safe, that are easy to clean if they do happen to have an accident during this time, but to keep them busy, especially since you're home and can kind of keep an eye on them. And then, give them an hour or two in the crate. And then, of course, every time your baby comes out of the crate, you're going to take them outside to go to the bathroom and to use the bathroom, give them that opportunity to go. And then you can have some time, schedule some time to play with them and, going outside, going for a long walk, playing fetch, playing with some toys in the house, whatever it may be. And then act like, when you go on your lunch break, you're coming home for lunch type situation. Puppies should be fed from 3 to 4 times a day, so you'll be giving a meal around that time, taking them out again to the bathroom. But just write this whole schedule down and stick to it. And if you stick to a routine, and do all of this up until you go to bed, it will really help the long run as far as potty training. Before you go to bed, if you're going to go to bed at 10 o'clock, that's when the dog needs to go to bed. Don't put the dog to bed at 9 o'clock at night, and then an hour later you're going to bed, because then the dog's probably going to be up and ready to go about an hour before you. So just try to line up the schedule as much as with your typical schedule. And eventually, it's not going to have to be this strict and kind of like by the book. Once they get potty trained, you're going to pick up cues on them, letting you know when they have to go to the bathroom. They're going to not have to go out as often. You can leave them free roaming throughout the house. They won't have to be in the crate all the time. So it's not going to be as strict, but right now it's super important. And just giving them that time too, like I said, about giving them time in the crate, that will help with that separation anxiety and making sure that that's not a habit that they pick up, because they'll be comfortable with being in their crate by themselves, keeping themselves occupied while you're focusing on your work. So that's super important. But routine is definitely the biggest thing, and then, making sure that you're taking them out, giving them the opportunity to go. So in addition to all of this, what happens if your puppy cries when I leave him or her in the crate? So I do get this a lot, where puppies are just irritated that they're in the crate. They throw a temper tantrum, they're crying, they're chewing on the bars, they're making you feel so awful for putting them, and then you feel like you're putting them in like some kind of jail cell. I know it's really hard, but you're gonna have to ignore the crying. So it's just like a baby learning to, sleep in the crib by themselves for the first time. They're screaming, they're throwing a tantrum, and they have to kind of cry it out. And it's the same concept. I know it's not easy, especially if you live in an apartment and you have neighbors and neighbors can hear and you don't want noise complaints. So we're going to talk about things that can kind of help with an adjustment in a second. So that can help so that eventually you can get to that point where, you don't have to do these extra things and then they're just fine with being in the crate. But ignore the crying. Don't save them when they are in the act of crying. So if they're crying and having a fit and you're worried about them, try to wait until they're quiet. And once they're quiet and things kind of seem normal, you can peek your head in there and see how things are, just to make sure that, your baby is not hurt in any way. Make sure there's no accident. But wait until they're done crying, because if you go in there, to go and check on them when they're in the act of having their fit, they're just learning that it's acceptable for them to do that, and that's a way to get your attention. And we don't want to give that negative reinforcement by saving them when they're in the act. So definitely wait until they're quiet, and then you can go and check on them. So things that can help with an adjustment, if they're really stubborn and are really mad about being in the crate, you can get a crate cover or a blanket. So I have a little picture shown here what a crate cover looks like. So this kind of gives them a sense of security, feeling a little more enclosed. So they may like that, so that may help. I like playing soft music, so sometimes I'll play classical music. I've done Christmas music when I was training my Great Dane to kind of be by himself, and they love that. It just kind of makes them feel like somebody's in the room, and eventually you can wean off the music and maybe get lower and lower to the point where it's almost not, non-existent, and you can eventually not have any music playing, or you can just always have music playing. That's completely up to you. And sometimes cartoons, if you have a TV in the room, I would play SpongeBob, different cartoons, because they just have some music and it's just colorful and can kind of make them feel like, somebody is there. So that kind of helps as well. So you, could play something on the TV for them to kind of help them get adjusted. And, eventually you can start to wean off the TV and they'll eventually get used to it. But, they really need to get used to that crate and being in there. Promise it's not a punishment to them. It feels like the world is over, but it's just structure for them, and it's really going to help in the long run. As far as, making sure that they don't have any separation anxieties and having that structure so there's not training issues that you're going to have in the future that you're going to have to fix. So, biggest thing with all of this and all the things we talked about, the crate training, going outside, you want to praise the good and ignore the bad. So positive reinforcement is key. The best thing to have is to find a favorite treat, something small and chewy. So I have a little picture of the Hills Natural Training Soft and Chewy Treats. So it's just something small. It's something easy for them to chew, eat, understand that they're getting a reward for doing something right. You don't want to give them a big cookie or a big bone, because by the time they finish that big cookie or bone, they're not going to remember why they got the treat. So something small, chewy, easy for them to eat. Doesn't have to be this Hills treat. They have 1,001 treats out there, so you can look into some different options and see which one your baby likes best. But save these treats, specifically for training purposes, because it's going to be a high value treat, something they're really going to enjoy and look forward to, and they'll do what they need to do to get that treat as well. So if an accident happens in the house, in the crate, You need to ignore it, clean up, and move on, which I know can be really frustrating, especially if you spent 30 minutes or, an hour outside trying to get them to go to the bathroom, and the minute they walk inside, they pee, or they did a great job holding it all afternoon in their crate, and then they get out of the crate and they walk towards the door to go outside to go to the bathroom, and they pee on the floor. Or they just do it spitefully right in front of you. So you have to bite your tongue, ignore it, clean up, and move on. So again, we only want to praise the good and ignore the bad. We don't want to yell at them. No old school way of shoving their nose in the accident. That was an old school way to tell them, like, no, you're not supposed to pee. No, no, no. All they see is them getting attention, whether it's good or bad, and they're going to do that to get your attention. So then eventually, if you're yelling at them for peeing or pooping on the floor, or on the carpet, or chewing something they're not supposed to, they're going to, continue to do those things to get your attention if you're not paying attention to them. So we don't want to teach them that's a way to get attention. So ignore it. So what happens if they don't pee or poop when they're outside and you've spent a half an hour out there trying to get them to go and they're not interested? So we're going to go over here, where it's really important to give them a time limit when you're outside to keep them focused. So only use, maybe 10, 15 minutes of time to focus with them out there. Try to walk in the same area where they go to go to the bathroom. And give them, a few minutes of time to go. If they happen to not pee or poop, after your 10 or 15 minutes, you're going to carry them inside. You're not going to let them walk inside to their crate, because that's when they're going to have an accident the minute they walk inside. Because what happens is, if you're out there for 10, 15 minutes, they probably started watching leaves blow or somebody walking by, and they forget the reason that they're out there. And then when they get inside, they're like, oh, all of a sudden I have to pee, and that's when they're going to have an accident right in front of you. So you're going to carry them inside and give them a few minutes, kind of like a reset button. Give them a chance to refocus on the task at hand. Give them a few minutes, then carry them back outside, because again, we don't want them to walk out of the crate and to have an accident after they were really good not having an accident in their crate, and it defeats the whole purpose. So carry them back outside. Even for your bigger dogs, while they're little and they're still able to be carried, same concept. Carry them back outside and try again and give another, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and more than likely they'll go. And that's when you're going to praise. So again, we go back to the positive reinforcement and praising the good. So when they pee, poop, you give them a treat, make a big celebration about it, jump up and down, say, good job, Fluffy. Make a big thing about it so they see that they get all this attention when they go to the bathroom outside, and they get no attention when they have an accident in the crate or in the house. And again, don't let them walk to or from the crate, because accidents will happen. And make sure you're still using that leash when you're outside. Make sure you have the leash attached to them. Attach it while you're walking out the door, and take it off when you're walking in. But always have that leash ready to go. So I do get, questions about potty pads, potty pad training. I've seen very few puppies that have actually been trained on a paper potty pad. If you've done it, that's great. And I just have not seen a lot of success, so I have an alternative to that. So I don't recommend the puppy paper pads. Reason is like 99% of the time I'll get, that they peed next to it or on half of the pad, and then the other half ended up on the floor, or they pooped next to it, or they chew on it, rip it into shreds, eat them, drag it around the house. That's not helpful. Doesn't help you for trying to keep a mess contained, as well as it does not help the puppy with potty training. I do like using grass pad alternatives if you would really insist on them using the bathroom in the house. For the fake grass pads, you can rinse them off. It saves money. It looks like the grass outside, so it's an easier transition, because if you're, training in an apartment now inside, but then eventually get a house, you know, they're already going to know what it's like. Or if you happen to go for walks outside, it's not a weird transition of them always used to being on potty pad, like the paper pad versus the grass. And I love these too because if you're in a high-rise building or in an apartment building on a top floor and, you know, you can't make it to the bottom where the grass is for the puppy to go without either having an accident or forgetting the whole reason that they're going out there, you can put these grass pads on the balcony and use it as if you're like going outside to your backyard type situation. I do highly suggest making sure that if you have railings and you have a tiny dog, make sure they're blocked off with getting like chicken fencing or figuring something out to be able to block it so that if you're on the patio with your pup, you know, they're safe. But have it on the back deck so that, you know, they have that opportunity. So it's like you're actually going on a walk. So, you know, you can just take them right out there on their leash, same concept as if you were going out to your backyard, take them on the leash, go to the bathroom, and put them on the grass pad and get them to use it. And it's the same thing, you know, if they don't go out there, you give them 10 minutes, they don't go to the bathroom, you're going to bring them back, you know, inside, put them in their crate, give them a time to reset and bring them back out there. The same rules apply with these guys on the grass pads on a patio as the same as if you were taking them outside to the actual grass. So giving them a limited amount of time, getting them to focus, use the leash, and, you know, if they don't go, you're going to bring them back in, put them in their crate, give them a chance to refocus, go back out, and let them use the bathroom. So I love these as an alternative. I think they work a lot better than the paper pads, and they just seem to get the concept a lot better. So grass pads, you can find them on Chewy, Amazon. You can get the AstroTurf from Home Depot, make your own. I think they have real grass pads, like it's actual real grass, like sod that you can get. Those would obviously have to be thrown away in between, but if you'd rather do that, you can do that as well. Let me go back. So again, those are my tips as far as like potty training, having those alternatives. Like I said again in the previous ones, you know, routine. So make sure you have a schedule. But if you're consistent, you're taking them outside, you're giving them the opportunity to go to the bathroom, they'll pick up on it really quick. Some people use the bells on the door. Those are hit and miss, so that kind of depends on your pup, but you can hang those on your doorknob where you typically go out to go to the bathroom, and, you know, you can teach them to ring that when they have to go. Some dogs may give you little cues and signs, you know, walk by the door you typically go out of, lay in front of it, bark. And that's kind of their way of saying, I have to go to the bathroom. So you'll have to just be very mindful, kind of watch for their cues. Again, if eyes are not on the puppy, they should be in the crate, or, you know, tethered to you so that they're not able to just roam around, because whenever you're not paying attention is when they're getting into trouble and having an accident. But use your crate to your advantage. I can't stress that enough. Do not think in any way, shape, or form it's any kind of punishment. I think it's a great structure. It's just like a porta-crib, a crib for toddlers. You know, you're not letting them just free roam around the house. They've got a schedule, their nap time, their feeding time. They've got a safe place to play. You know, you're baby-proofing your home. So it's the same thing with these guys. You're giving them a safe place to sleep, a safe place to hang out when you're working or doing chores or doing whatever you need to do when you can't give them 100% attention. And you're putting a schedule together for their potty schedule, for their feeding schedule, and for their sleeping. So just use that to make yourself feel better if you're hesitant about the crate. But I can tell you, I've had a dog that was crate trained versus a dog that wasn't, and it was an amazing difference in just how little issues we had with one dog versus the other. The one that wasn't crate trained, you know, we had a lot of accidents in the house, a lot of, I call it spitefulness. Like, I know she knew where she was supposed to go. We would take her out all the time and she still had accidents, but it was because we were giving her negative attention, giving that negative reinforcement. So doing the positive reinforcement, and just getting into a good routine is definitely the best. So I hope this little PowerPoint helped you guys and gave, you know, answered some questions if you had some. Um, you know, this video will be up on our page, so you can go back and watch it when it, you know, when you like to, if you want to go over something that I talked about here. But if you do have any other questions or a certain situation that I didn't bring up personally on here in this video today, let us know. You can message us on Facebook, you can comment on the post, or you can call the clinic and ask for me. Again, my name is Gabby. I know you can't see me, but I just think this having this PowerPoint is great. So trying something new for a little bit. But hopefully, again, this helped you guys, and I hope you guys have a great holiday weekend, and we will see you